Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars. Let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, starting on the 1 week time frame here for Bitcoin, because this is it, guys. This is the thing that I've been talking about for a long time at this point. We are now seeing another touch point with this downtrend in the RSI. So what I think will happen next here is we are going to get a very clear answer in the charts here regarding this RSI. Are we going to see a rejection back down? In which case we are likely to see a continuation like this of just getting this sideways and especially bearish momentum for Bitcoin, because we would be deviating further and further away from this 50 level. So the price action would become more and more bearish as the RSI goes lower. Or are we going to see a break of this downtrend on the RSI, in which case we are potentially actually getting a signal that this downtrend that we have been in is now reversing and ready to send us in another leg to the upside for Bitcoin. And yes, even though this could take some time to actually play out, getting a signal like this where it actually breaks through could be a very early signal for us that we are actually going to get another leg to the upside for Bitcoin. And in my personal opinion, I think it is likely that we would break out of the top of this descending channel at some point if this actually happens. So now in this video, let's zoom in further and further into the shorter term to determine what I think is likely to happen next in the short term, right? First of all, starting on this 1 day time frame for Bitcoin, because we have this exaggerated bullish divergence in the charts indicating a potential reversal signal when this actually occurred. And yes, of course, when this actually confirmed, this turned out to be the exact bottom on this recent move to the downside. So we caught this very, very early here. And of course, we also bounced from this big level of support to the downside. So therefore, this was a very nice catch here in the charts. Moving on to the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin, because of course, right here, we broke out above this previous level of resistance. And as you know, like usually when this happens, where we break out above a level of resistance, we immediately shoot up into the next level of resistance above that. And here we saw that once again. So we are now trading inside this big level of resistance, sitting from 60,000 all the way up to 62.4K. Although besides this big level of resistance, we are now also seeing this descending trend line acting as a level of resistance as well. So this is something important to pay attention to also on that 4-hour time frame. And actually, if you take a look at the daily time frame for Bitcoin, then you can draw it a little bit differently, and it shows that there could be a little more room to the upside here if you draw it like this. But just in general, I would say be careful longing in these big levels of resistance, unless it is like a very short-term trade on much lower time frames, because then these big levels of resistance or these big trend lines, for example, they are a little bit less relevant if you're trading a much lower time frame. Although I would say if we break out above 62.4K, let's say up to 62.7K, then I think it will go quite fast, and we would likely shoot up to this next level of resistance pretty quickly after that, sitting from 65 all the way up to 66,000. Now, the reason I say 62.7K specifically is because this is the Fibonacci golden pocket for Bitcoin, which is sitting between 62,000 and that 62.7K level. Now, usually this is a strong level of resistance. So if you see a break of that 62.7K level, where, for example, we break out above, like we did here, then come back down to retest it and flip it into a level of support, and it actually holds, then very likely we are just blasting off to the upside from there. In this previous case here, we actually came up above, and then when we came down to retest it and flip it into a level of support, we did not manage to do that. So instead, we actually fell straight through and did not hold it as a level of support. And this is often a signal that we are going to get much more bearish price action after that, which I warned about at the time, and then we got the bearish price action. But the bullish scenario would be what I explained previously here. Now, great that we are talking about all this bullish price action, but what is actually going on with the RSI on the lower time frames? Well, right here you can see a drawing that I made in yesterday's video, which was when we were trading in this circle right here. And I was saying, guys, we just touched into overbought territory. And usually what you'll see is that, yes, you can go a little bit higher, as I literally drew out yesterday. And that is basically exactly what we saw, because we went a little bit higher into that overbought zone, and then the RSI reset back down to around that 50 level, literally exactly to 51. So for now, if we go back to this 4-hour time frame, on the RSI, you can see we are still pretty close to that overbought area here. Let me just get rid of this. But you could look towards this 0.5 Fibonacci level at 59.5K as a short-term level of support. Although if we start breaking down below this with volume, then it becomes much more likely that we are actually coming all the way down to 57,000 US dollars and potentially retesting this level of support down here once again. Because at that point, if you come back to this chart on the daily time frame, if we now lose that 59.5K level of support, then it would look bad on the lower time frames, and on the higher time frames, it would just look like a rejection from this trend line or from this big level of resistance, however you want to look at it. And then likely we would come back into this white area here once again to test that as a level of support. So that is the way that I'm currently viewing the charts on the lower time frames as well. Yeah, in the short term, it really just looks like we are facing a lot of resistance to the upside. But I guess one good thing is that we have the CME Gap now sitting at about 60,000 US dollars. In fact, you can see in the bottom right of my screen right here that it is 59.9K. However, you may also notice that we have a CME Gap right here to the downside, all the way at 53,000 US dollars for the Bitcoin price. And so long as this does not get closed, we will always have to worry about this a little bit, that this gap might get closed at some point, right? And what you saw here previously is we had this gap right here. And then when the markets opened up again, we actually got about a 15% move to the upside before then coming back down to actually fill the CME gap. So that is just something to take into consideration. At some point, I think it is quite likely that we are coming down to fill this CME gap. Unless we now break out of the top of this descending channel, then I think it is just much more likely we are going to see further upside after that. But I will start talking more about that if this actually occurs. And then we can start talking about the CME gap at 53K or something like that at that time. Next, taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat maps. First of all, on the 1 week time frame. Yesterday, we took out a lot of liquidity to the upside, sitting at about 59,000 US dollars. So a lot of bears are still really getting just wrecked out here, shorting this downtrend every single day, and they are just getting liquidated every day here. And there is even more liquidity to the upside, sitting at 61,000 US dollars, roughly speaking, on the 1 week time frame at least. Although what is slightly worrisome if you are a bull in this scenario here is that there is quite a bit of liquidity piling up to the downside. And usually the Bitcoin price gets attracted to where there is the most liquidity on this chart. And in this case, it is sitting as low as about 54,000 US dollars for the Bitcoin price. And taking a look at the 1 month Bitcoin liquidation heat map, you can see that there's a lot of liquidity to the upside and to the downside here. So what this tells you is that the market is very conflicted here. A lot of people are long, a lot of people are short. And what I've tried to show you in this video here, for example, with this RSI downtrend, where we are now at the exact touch point with the trend line, is that we are going to get some kind of clarity here very, very soon. So it is a very important time to pay attention to the charts, because if you, for example, see a big rejection down from that RSI trend line, then we are going to come grab this liquidity much lower in the Bitcoin price. And if you see it break through, then we are very likely going to grab a lot of liquidity to the upside, right? So that is why right now, in these following 1 or 2 weeks or so, is a very important time for Bitcoin to actually pay attention, not only if you're a spot holder, but especially if you're taking relatively short-term trades. But that is just my personal opinion. Either way, this has been today's market update. Don't forget to come check out the Road to 1 Million community on Discord. This is a very active community of people that are trading crypto every single day, and it is completely free to use. So you can find the link to this in the video description. So hopefully you join the community and maybe tag me if you join so I can say hello or something like that. You know, it would be cool to see more of you guys in the community here. We already have 1,500 members or something like that. So it's really crazy. Regardless, if you do end up joining or not, thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.